The stars above the planet Cawthon burned blue and cold. On the surface, inside the high hall of the Kirathi Empire, powerful alien leaders sat around a circular table of black stone. The hall was filled with tension. Everyone knew this meeting would decide the future of two great civilizations, the mighty Kirathi Empire and the rising force of the Terran Union humans. The Kirathi leader, Warlord Verkor, sat tall on his throne. He was a giant figure with gray-scaled skin and piercing red eyes. His voice was deep like thunder. Around him sat his generals, his council, and his only daughter. Princess Thalera, standing across from him, was a single human Terran. Ambassador Ilyas Ruwu. He was not tall compared to the Kirathi, but he stood with confidence. He wore a dark coat with the symbol of Earth, a blue and green sphere on his shoulder. His face was calm, his eyes steady. For weeks, the two sides had argued about peace. The humans wanted trade and friendship. The Kirathi wanted dominance. Verkor didn't believe humans were worth respecting. He agreed to the meeting only to show power. Now, the time had come to sign the peace treaty. Verkor stood up. He smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was cold and sharp. As a sign of our goodwill, he said loudly, I offer you a gift. Human Elias raised an eyebrow. A gift? Yes, Verkor said. My daughter, Princess Thalera. She is now yours. A gesture of peace. Gasps and laughter echoed in the hall. The Kirathi thought it was funny. They believed the human would be embarrassed or even angry. Giving a daughter as a gift was an old Kirathi tradition, but never used in diplomacy. It was meant to mock, not honor. Princess Thalera looked down, her face expressionless. Her golden eyes flicked toward her father, then toward Elias. No one noticed a small flash of something in her eyes. Was it pain? Was it hope? Everyone waited for Elias to speak. Would he protest? Would he walk away? But Elias only nodded slowly. I accept, he said. The hall fell silent. Even Verkor blinked in surprise. You accept, the warlord said, narrowing his eyes. Yes, Elias said calmly. If it is your gift, I will respect your tradition. Verkor's jaw clenched. This wasn't the reaction he expected. He wanted to shame the human, not honor him. Thalera stood up. Her steps were slow but steady. She walked toward Elias, keeping her head high. Her golden hair flowed behind her like fire, and the fine silver robes she wore shimmered with every step. She stopped beside Elias and turned back to look at her father for the first time. She smiled not at Verkor but at Elias. The humans had come in peace, and this one, he had accepted her without shame. That meant something. She had expected to be treated like a burden, but Elias looked at her like a person, not property. Shall we go, Ambassador? She asked in a soft voice. Elias offered his arm politely. If you're ready, Princess. Together, they left the high hall. The Kirathi council watched in silence. The laughter had stopped. No one understood what had just happened. The ship, Resolute Dawn, rose from Cawthon's sky like a silver arrow. From a viewing window, Thalera looked down at her homeworld. It looked beautiful, oceans of green clouds and silver forests, but to her, it had always felt like a prison. Elias stood nearby, speaking with his first officer, a young woman named Caroline. They talked in soft voices, not wanting to disturb the princess. When Elias approached, he stood a respectful distance away. Free to move about the ship, he said. Your quarters are next to mine, but you'll have your own space. Thalera tilted her head. You're very different from what I was told. What were you told? Elias asked. But humans are loud, aggressive, full of desire and greed, she replied. Elias smiled slightly. We can be, but we can also be kind, curious, hopeful. She turned back to the window. Why did you accept me? Elias thought for a moment. Because I saw in your eyes that you didn't want to be a gift. You wanted to be seen. And I don't believe in turning my back on someone treated unfairly. A long silence followed. No man has ever spoken to me like that, she said quietly. Then perhaps the Kirathi need new leaders. She looked at him again. Perhaps. Meanwhile, in the high hall, Warlord Verkor paced back and forth. His generals watched him, unsure what to say. He accepted her, Verkor roared, as if she was worth something. Was it not your idea, my lord? One of the generals asked carefully. Verkor snarled. Yes, but he turned my insult into a victory. Now it looks like we honored him. And your daughter. She went willingly. Verkor stopped. He hadn't expected that. He always thought Thalera was loyal, quiet, obedient. But perhaps he had been wrong. On board the Resolute Dawn, days passed. Thalera began to walk the halls freely. The human crew treated her kindly. They smiled, bowed, and greeted her. Some even asked her questions about Kirathi culture. They weren't afraid of her, they were curious. In the dining hall, Elias and Thalera sat together. Their plates held different foods, alien fruits and human grains. Thalera tried a Terran fruit and blinked in surprise. "It's sweet," she said. "Like our hope for peace," Elias joked. She smiled. "Do all humans speak in strange poetry?" "No," Elias said. "Just the ones with too much coffee and not enough sleep." She laughed a soft, real laugh. For the first time, she felt safe. And for the first time in her life, she wondered what it meant to be free. End of part 1. Princess Thalera sat near the wide glass window in her private room on the spaceship Resolute Dawn. Outside, space stretched in every direction, dark, silent, and full of stars. The stars reminded her of the night skies on Corthan, but here, they seemed more alive, more free. She rested her hand on the cold glass and sighed. For the first time in her life, she was away from her father's control, away from the rules of the Kirathi court. No guards watching her every move, no fear of disappointing a warlord. Now she was on a human ship, traveling toward a planet she had only read about. Earth. She didn't know what to expect. But one thing was clear. Ambassador Elias Rourke was not like the stories she had heard about humans. Hugh was calm, thoughtful, and respectful. He didn't treat her like property or some prize. He treated her like a person. Elias stood on the ship's command deck, watching the stars with his first officer, Kara Lynn. "She's adjusting faster than I thought," Kara said. The princess. Elias nodded. "She's stronger than she looks. She's been through a lot." "You think she's spying for her father?" Elias thought about it. "At first I did, but now, I'm not so sure. There's something honest in her eyes." Kara crossed her arms. "We're still taking a risk bringing her to Earth." "We're taking a risk either way," Elias replied. "But I believe in peace, and I believe in giving people a chance to change." Kara said nothing more, but the look in her eyes showed respect. Later that day, Thalera walked through the ship's main hallway. She wore simple human clothes, now comfortable fabric instead of royal robes. Crew members nodded to her, smiling politely. No one looked at her like a trophy. No one whispered behind her back. She passed by the medical bay, where human doctors treated a crewman with a small injury. The way they cared for him, gently and quickly, surprised her. Back home, Kirathi doctors only showed kindness to the elite. The weak were left behind. "Princess Thalera," a soft voice called. She turned to see Elias standing at the doorway of a small room. "I was wondering," he said, "would you join me in the library?" Thalera nodded. Of course. The library was quiet, filled with shelves of digital books and screens showing human history, art, and science. Elias offered her a seat. They sat together as a soft blue light lit the space. "Have you ever read human poetry?" Elias asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Poetry?" He smiled and activated a screen. A gentle voice read aloud a poem by a long-dead human named Tagore. The words spoke of freedom, dreams, and hope. Thalera closed her eyes. As she listened, the words felt warm inside her chest. "We don't have poetry like this," she said softly. "Our words are for war, duty, and honor, never for dreams." "You deserve to dream too," Elias said. She looked at him. "You really mean that?" "I do." For a moment, there was only silence between them. Then Thalera said something she had never said before. "I didn't want to be a gift." Elias nodded. "I know. My father ordered me to obey, but deep inside I hated it. I hated being used." "I'm sorry," Elias said. "No one should be treated that way. I thought humans would be worse." She continued. "But, your people, you're not like I expected." Elias smiled. "We're not perfect, but we try, and we learn." She looked down, then back up. "I was also ordered to watch you, to report your weaknesses." Elias didn't move. "Well, she said firmly, "I don't want to spy anymore. I want to choose my own path." "That's the first step to freedom," Elias said. "Choosing for yourself." Meanwhile, back on Corthon, Warlord Verkal stood in the war chamber. His generals stood in silence as he smashed a table in anger. "She was supposed to be a joke," he shouted. "A tool. And now look, he treats her like royalty." "Perhaps it is part of their plan," one general said. "To win her loyalty," Verkal glared. "She is Kirathi, she is loyal to me." The general looked uneasy. "My lord, we have received a message from a noble house. They believe the princess's actions show strength. They ask if her journey to Earth was part of a larger plan to build peace." Verkal narrowed his eyes. "They support her, yes, my lord." Verkal clenched his fists. "Fools. She is not a leader. She is a girl playing with humans." But deep inside, the warlord felt something he had not felt in years: fear. His daughter was becoming something he could not control. Back on the Resolute Dawn, Elias stood outside Thalera's quarters. He hesitated for a moment, then knocked. Gently. "Enter," came her voice. He stepped inside. The room was lit with soft yellow light. Thalera sat on the edge of the bed, holding a small metal cube. "What's that?" Elias asked. "A memory cube," she said. "It holds moments from my childhood. My mother recorded them before she died." Elias sat across from her. "Would you like to show me?" Thalera looked unsure, then nodded. She activated the cube. A small image appeared in the air, a young Thalera running through silver gardens, laughing. A gentle female voice called her name. Her mother. Elias watched quietly. "I miss her," Thalera said. "She was kind, gentle, not like my father." "I can see that in you," Elias said. "Her spirit lives in you." Thalera's eyes shimmered. "I don't know who I am anymore. Am I Kirathi? Am I a stranger now to my people?" "You're both," Elias said, "and neither you're you. That's what matters." She looked at him. "I don't feel like a gift anymore." "You never were," Elias said. "You're a person, and more than that, you're someone with a choice." The ship continued its journey through the stars. Each day Thalera learned more about humans. She watched children laugh and recorded videos. She studied human music and painted her first picture. She even learned to cook a small earth meal with lots of mistakes and laughter. And each day, the bond with Elias grew stronger. One evening, as they walked in the garden bay, a room filled with plants and fake sunlight, Thalera asked him a question. "Elias, do you think there's a future where humans and Kirathi live as equals?" Elias stopped walking and looked at her. "I do," he said. "If people like you lead the way." She smiled. "Then maybe I'll try to be that kind of person." End of part 2. The ship Resolute Dawn moved silently through the darkness of space. Its engines hummed softly, and the stars outside shone like distant dreams. Inside, life continued peacefully, but for Princess Thalera and Ambassador Elias Rourke, something deeper was growing with each passing day. Thalera had begun to feel something she had never felt before. Not fear, not duty, not pressure from her father, but comfort, warmth, connection. She would wake each day, looking forward to long conversations with Elias. He shared stories of earth or forests, oceans, cities filled with lights, and people dancing in the rain. She listened with wide eyes, imagining a world where people lived not to obey but to live freely. Elias, too, found himself changing. He had been trained for diplomacy, not emotions. He had met warriors, rulers, and kings, but never someone like Thalera. Strong and gentle, quiet, yet full of hidden fire. Their friendship had become a bond, and that bond had started to grow into something more. One morning, Thalera joined Elias in the observation bay. The wide glass wall showed the planet Earth, a head blue and green, glowing like a jewel in the dark. "So that's your home?" Thalera whispered. "It is," Elias said, "and soon it will be yours too, if you want it to be." Thalera turned to him. "You really mean that?" He nodded. "You're not just a guest. You're free to make your own future." She smiled. "Then I want to see more of your world." That evening, the ship arrived in orbit around Earth. Thalera stood beside Elias as they landed near the Terran capital. In a city called Nova Geneva, a crowd of people had gathered. Soldiers in uniforms stood at attention. Scientists, diplomats, and even schoolchildren waved flags as the ship's doors opened. When Thalera stepped out, the crowd went silent. She stood tall in her silver Kirathi cloak, but her expression was calm. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a bridge between two worlds. Beside her, Elias gently offered his hand. She took it. The crowd began to cheer. Thalera's days on Earth were full of wonder. She visited museums, schools, gardens, and even sat in on meetings of the Earth Council. People were curious about her, but they were kind. Many thanked her for choosing peace. Some called her the Star Princess. One evening, after a peaceful walk through a human botanical garden, she asked Elias, "Why do your people love flowers so much?" Elias smiled. "Because flowers remind us that beauty can grow even in hard places." Thalera looked down at a blooming rose, "Like me," she said quietly. "Exactly like you," Elias whispered. Time passed. Weeks became months. The Kirathi Empire, watching from afar, grew uneasy. Warlord Virkal had expected his daughter to return quickly, ashamed or defeated. Instead, news reached him that she was speaking at human conferences, helping to sign trade deals, and being called a symbol of unity. He was furious. "She is being used," he shouted in his war chamber, "turned into their puppet." But his advisors brought him troubling news. "The Kirathi people admire her now," one general said, carefully. "Many believe she is bringing honor to our name. They call her the voice of stars." Verkal clenched his fists. She is no leader, she is just a girl. But even he could see the truth. She was no longer the obedient daughter he once controlled. She had become something greater. Back on Earth, Thalara and Elias had grown closer than ever. One quiet night while watching the stars from a rooftop in Nova Geneva, she turned to him and asked softly, "Do you believe in fate, Elias?" He looked at her gently. "I believe we make our own fate, one choice at a time." Thalara nodded. "Then I choose this." And in that moment, their hands touched hand, their hearts spoke the words they hadn't dared to say before. They loved each other, not as human and alien, not as ambassador and guest, but as two souls who had found peace in each other. Their bond became known, slowly but respectfully. Human leaders were cautious, but supportive. Peace was growing. And with Thalara helping as a cultural bridge, misunderstandings between the two species began to fade. She learned to speak more human languages, learned ancient Kirathi customs. They attended peace ceremonies together. They shared stories with children. They planted the first unity tree in the center of Earth's capital, a gift from both species. And then, one quiet morning, Thalara came to Elias with a soft smile and surprising news. She placed his hand gently over her belly. "There is life inside me," she whispered. Elias froze. His eyes widened. "You mean?" She nodded. "I carry a child. Yours." For a long time, neither of them spoke. And then Elias placed both his hands on hers. "You've given me the greatest gift I could imagine," he said, voice full of emotion. Tears touched Thalara's golden eyes, and for the first time, "I feel like I truly belong." The news spread quickly. A child half human, half Kirathi was growing. Reactions were mixed. Some humans cheered, calling the child a child of peace. Some Kirathi nobles panicked. A mixing of blood, it is forbidden. But others saw hope. "This child could unite us," said a human senator. "This heir could bring the stars together," said a Kirathi philosopher. Still, not everyone was ready for peace. Back on Cawthon, Warlord Verkal sat in silence, holding a message, crystal from Thalara. It had her voice, calm and clear. "Father, I have chosen my own path. I will raise this child with love and honor. I hope one day you can see them not as a mistake, but as a beginning." Verkal stared at the crystal for a long time. His hands trembled, but he said nothing. On Earth, Thalara and Elias began preparing for the birth. Scientists offered medical help. Artists offered songs. Children sent drawings from every colony. The world was changing. No longer just two sides, but one future connected by love, courage, and choice. And in the quiet evenings, when the stars above Earth began to shine, Thalara would rest beside Elias and whisper, "This was never about war or peace. This was about understanding. And you were the first to see me not as a weapon or gift but as someone worth knowing." Elias would smile and reply, "And you showed me the strength of grace." Together they waited for the new life that would carry the stars in their blood and hope in their heart. End of part 3. The news of the unborn child spread faster than light through every corner of space. Some rejoiced, some feared, and some prepared for war. Princess Thalara, now resting in the capital city of Earth, had become the center of something far bigger than herself. She had arrived as a silent gift, but now she was carrying a symbol of unity. Her child, half human and half Kirathi, was a bridge between two galaxies. But peace is never simple, and old enemies never sleep for long. Thalara sat by a lake surrounded by trees, her hands resting over her growing belly. The quiet sounds of nature brought her peace. She had never known such a life before, free from guards, orders, and fear. Elias joined her, carrying a small box. "What is it?" she asked, smiling. He opened it slowly. Inside was a necklace, simple, with a silver star hanging from a smooth chain. "It belonged to my mother," he said. "She gave it to me, and now I want you to have it." Thalara took the necklace with trembling fingers. "It's beautiful. So are you," Elias whispered. Her eyes softened. She leaned into him, and they sat in silence, listening to the wind. But far across the stars, on the Kirathi homeworld, trouble was brewing. Warlord Verkal had spent months watching the spread of his daughter's message: hope, peace, and equality. It angered him. It frightened him. His pride had been wounded. "She dishonors the throne," he growled to his council. "She will return to Cawthon. I will bring her back myself if I must." One advisor stepped forward nervously. "But my lord, the people love her now. They see her as the future. If you harm her, there may be rebellion." Verkal's eyes glowed with fury. "Then we will silence those voices before they grow louder." He stood tall. "Prepare the fleet. We go to Earth. Back on Earth, Thalera had begun working with human leaders to build a shared space station, a symbol of peaceful alliance between both species. She met engineers, doctors, and teachers. She laughed with Earth's children. She told stories of the twin moons of Corthan and sang lullabies in her people's language. Wherever she went, hearts opened, but the peace was fragile. One night, as she sat with Elias watching the stars, an emergency message arrived. It flashed red on the communication screen. Elias read it, and his face became pale. Thalera stepped closer. What is it? He looked at her slowly. Your father. He's coming, with ships, a war fleet. Thalera's breath caught. No. Elias placed his hand on her shoulder. We'll keep you safe, I promise. But she shook her head. This is not just about me anymore. This is about everything. The Earth Council quickly held a meeting. Tension filled the air. This could be war, one general said. We cannot let the Kirathi land, but if we attack first, it will destroy all we've built, said a diplomat. Elias stood and spoke with calm strength. We will not start a war, but we must protect Thalera and the child. They are not just symbols, they are the key to peace. The council agreed. Defense systems were prepared. Ships were sent to patrol the skies. And deep within the heart of Earth, a secret bunker was prepared, just in case Thalera watched everything unfold with quiet pain in her heart. I never wanted this, she said to Elias. I know, he replied, but sometimes peace is born through struggle. She nodded slowly. Then I will not hide. If my father wants to speak, I will face him. Elias's eyes widened. It's dangerous. He gave me away like an object, she said. Now, I will show him that I am more. Her voice was steady. I am his daughter, but I am no longer his tool. Days later, the sky above Earth darkened. Giant Kirathi warships appeared, black, sharp, and powerful. They hovered above the atmosphere like a shadow from the past. The Earth's defense systems locked on, but they did not fire. A single small shuttle broke away from the fleet and descended toward the surface. It landed quietly near the Earth capital. Soldiers surrounded it. Guns were ready. And then, the ramp opened. Out stepped Warlord Verkal himself, clad in dark armor. His face older, angrier, but still full of power. His eyes searched the crowd and stopped when they saw her. Thalera stood at the front, tall and unshaken. She said, Daughter, he replied coldly. The council allowed a private meeting in a secure chamber. Thalera and Elias stood together on one side. Verkal stood alone. You have shamed me, he said quietly. I have lived freely. Thalera answered. You were given as a gift, he said. I am not a thing to be given, she replied. I am a person, and soon I will be a mother. Verkal's jaw tightened. A child with human blood. She nodded proudly. Yes, a child of two worlds. Verkal stepped forward, voice rising. This is betrayal. Elias stepped forward, calm but strong. No, it is a new beginning. Verkal turned to him sharply. You stole my daughter. No, Elias said. I loved her. The room fell silent. Thalera stepped forward and placed her hand over her stomach. This child is not a threat. This child is hope. Her voice softened. Look at me, father. Do I look weak? Verkal's lips tightened. She continued. I did what you could not. I made peace. Not through fear, but through love. Verkal's eyes flickered. For a moment, something inside him cracked. He looked at her not as a pawn or soldier, but as his daughter. She was no longer the quiet girl who obeyed. She was a leader, and he could not change that at last. Verkal spoke again, but his voice was lower. You would stand against your blood. I stand with my people. Both of them, she said, slowly. Verkal turned toward the door. He said one final sentence, then raised the child well, and he left. No weapons fired that day, no ships attacked, and slowly, the Kirathi fleet turned and disappeared into the stars that night. Earth slept peacefully again. In the gardens of the Unity building, Thalera and Elias sat under the open sky. The air was cool. The stars were calm. I didn't think you would leave so easily, Elias said. Leave easily, Thalera whispered. But deep inside, he saw me, for the first time. Elias placed a hand on her stomach, and he saw the child. Thalera nodded. The heir of two worlds. They looked up, silent together. For the first time, there was no fear, only the soft promise of tomorrow. End of part 4. Months passed after Warlord Verkal returned to his planet. The stars remained quiet. No warships came. No new threats rose. And on Earth, peace slowly grew. The Unity station between Earth and Kirathi space was now under construction. Workers from both species labored side by side, building not only metal walls but trust. At the center of all this was Thalera, now near the end of her pregnancy. Her steps were slower, but her heart was stronger than ever. Her face had changed too soft and proud. The fire inside her had turned into something gentle. Ilias stayed by her side through it all. He read to her each night of stories, Kirathi legends, poems written by humans who dreamed of stars. And each night, he spoke to the child, resting his hand on her belly. Little one, he whispered, you are more than a child. You are a future we never dreamed was possible. One quiet morning, the sun was rising over Earth's eastern sky when Thalera woke with a strange feeling. She sat up, breathing deeply. The room was peaceful, birds chirping outside. But something had begun. She touched Ilias's arm gently. It's time, she said. Time, she said. His eyes opened in an instant. She nodded with a soft smile. Yes, within minutes, medical teams arrived. The city's finest doctors prepared a special delivery room safe, warm and peaceful. Thalera was not afraid. She had faced warships. She had faced her father now. She would face motherhood. The labor was long. She gripped Elias's hand tightly through the hours. Sweat covered her forehead. Her voice cried out once, then again, and again. But she never gave up. The doctors worked with great care. The room was quiet, serious, and then it happened. A small, strong cry broke the silence. The child was born. Half human, half case single quotes are a tiny, healthy, and full of life. Tears filled Elias's eyes as he looked at the baby. She's beautiful. Thalera, exhausted but smiling, held her daughter gently. The child's skin was a soft golden hue. Her small eyes blinked open, one silver, one green. She was not just a child. She was living proof of two worlds becoming one. The news of her birth was sent to both galaxies. On Earth, people gathered in streets, cheering and waving flags. In Kirathi colonies, songs were sung in her name. Many called her the child of two suns. To them she was not a threat. Hope, a new path forward. Even on the Kirathi homeworld, where Warlord Verkor sat in his dark throne, the news reached him. He said nothing at first. He only looked out the window, deep in thought. Finally, he said quietly, may she be strong, may she be wise. And then, for the first time in years, he smiled. The naming ceremony was held in Unity Gardens, where both humans and Kirathi stood together. Elias wore a dark blue formal suit. Thalera wore flowing white robes with golden design symbols of peace. In her arms, the baby rested. Quietly, a crowd of thousands stood before them. Cameras flew above. The entire galaxy watched. Elias stepped forward and spoke. We name her Aurelia Thala Rorka, name that means light of peace in both our languages. The crowd cheered. Thaleira added, she is not just ours. She belongs to every child who dreams of peace. Let her be a light in the dark. And so, the child's name was written in history. As the months passed, Aurelia grew quickly. She had her father's curiosity and her mother's strength. She listened closely to voices, even before she could speak. She watched stars from the window, often pointing upward with wide eyes. Thalera and Elias raised her with love and care. No palace, no throne, just a warm home with stories, laughter, and quiet songs under the night sky. Sometimes Thalera would whisper to her, one day, you'll understand what you mean to the stars. And Aurelia would smile, though she didn't yet know why. One day, when Aurelia was just learning to walk, a surprise visitor arrived. A small Kirathi ship landed in the Unity Garden courtyard. From it stepped a tall figure in dark robes, Warlord Verkor. He looked older now, softer. Guards prepared quickly, but Thalera raised her hand. Let him pass. Verkor walked slowly, his eyes fixed on the child in Thalera's arms, stood before them quiet. Thalera waited, calm. At last, Verkor spoke. May I hold her? Thalera looked at Elias. He nodded. Carefully, she placed the baby into her father's arms. Verkor held her gently, as if she were made of light. His eyes, once hard as steel, now filled with something else, regret, perhaps, or love. She has your strength, he said softly, and Elias's heart. Thalera added. Verkor looked at her. You were never mine to control. I see that now. Thalera smiled gently. No, but I was always your daughter. From that day on, Verkor stepped away from war. He returned home and began speaking of peace. He gave up control to a council and began building schools instead of warships. The galaxy changed slowly but surely. And at the center of that change was a small girl with one green eye and one silver. Years passed. Aurelia grew into a smart, kind child. She traveled with her parents to different planets, met children of many species, and learned to speak both Earth's languages and the flowing tongue of the Kirathi. On her 10th birthday, she stood before a gathering of thousands and gave Her first public speech. I am not just a child of humans. I am not just a Kurathi. I am a child of stars. And stars belong to everyone. The crowd stood in silence. Then, as one they clapped, it was the sound of peace. Thalera watched her daughter from a distance that day. Her eyes were full. Elias stood beside her. She's more than we ever dreamed. Thalera nodded. She's everything we hoped for. They held hands, standing in the light of twin suns, one from Earth, one from Kurathi space, shining together. And in between them stood a child, not born from power, but from love. End of part 5. Final part.